All systems go. Cleared for takeoff.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the SHIPIT Nation Showdown show for the Germany game this week between the Dolphins and the Chiefs. And it's unfortunate that this game is being played so early on Sunday that it's not on the main slate, because this would be the premier game for the main slate, but it is on the Showdown, and we do have big prize pools. The total in this game is 50.5. Chiefs favored by 1.5, so basically a pick 'em here. This is definitely the premier game on the slate. It's going to be it starts at 9:30 Eastern time, so a lot of us will be likely missing it. And then on the West Coast, we're talking 6:30 a.m. So in terms of fantasy though for this game, obviously two of the premier offenses in the NFL. We'll kind of go through, talk some captain plays, talk some flex plays, and see what we can find. And then for the website over at shipitnation.com, if you're not a member, get on over there, check it out. We'll have core plays for DraftKings, FanDuel, and then we'll have a cash core as well. So we got you covered for this game in terms of core plays. Now, as I said, two of the premier offenses in the NFL, kind of know where these guys go. In terms of reps on the offensive side for the Dolphins, Tyreek Hill, just absolute stud. Look at what he's done recently. 28, 25, 31, 35. He's a guy you have to consider in the captain. Patrick Mahomes, 11-6. Coming off a good game, or not coming off a good game against Denver. He was a little bit sick, and they just got their butts kicked. I do expect their offense to bounce back. Is it enough for him to pay off in the captain spot? I probably prefer Tyreek over him, but if you want some Mahomes exposure, fine with that. Kelsey, I love in the captain at 10-8. He's got the slate winning upside. The pass catchers just kind of have an advantage on DraftKings with the full PPR. Probably won't play much Tua in the captain, but I do like Waddle and Pacheco as well. Waddle finally had a big game last time out, 28 fantasy points. He's kind of humming right around there, but 14, 18, 12, and then pops off for the 28. The targets have been there. I like him in the captain. And then Pacheco is a guy to consider for one main reason, and it's these targets, 4, 4, 6, and then a 3, and then he just had the one against Minnesota. But typically a guy that does most of his damage on the ground. But now that he's getting some of these targets as well in the passing game, I think he's the guy to consider. Mostert was questionable, but he's good to go. I think he's a guy that you could potentially play. I don't necessarily love him in the captain. Primary captains, Tyreek, Kelsey, I'd say Waddle, and then the next tier will be like Mahomes, Pacheco, Tua, Mostert. So I'm going to kind of have them separated into two different tiers, but Tyreek, Kelsey, Waddle kind of in that top tier for me, and then Mahomes, Tua, Pacheco, Mostert. I don't see myself going cheap captain. I think it's probably one of those 7 guys that I rattled off. It's kind of where we're at in the captain spot in terms of flex plays, correlation, that sort of thing. Let me talk about the correlation. If I'm playing Mahomes in the captain, I want at least one pass catcher. For these Tyreek Hill captain teams, I don't think you necessarily have to have Tua in there, but for Kelsey, I want Mahomes in the flex in those Kelsey captain teams, because it's typically going to be a touchdown that gets him here, whereas Tyreek could just have the big yardage games and not the touchdown. So you don't necessarily need Tua in there. But like with Tyreek in the captain, probably no Waddle in the flex. So that sort of correlation stuff is what I'll be looking at for this game. I think all those guys are very viable flex options that I mentioned. Obviously Tyreek, Mahomes, Kelsey, Tua, Waddle, Pacheco, Mostert, all flex options for sure. How much I get, we'll see. The next tier, guys, Rice appears to be the main target for Patrick Mahomes. Been very steady. I mean, you look at it, even all season, 3-2, and then 5-3, 4-4, 5-4 in terms of receptions. He's been solid. He had a 17 fantasy point game. A guy that I don't necessarily want in the captain, but definitely want him in the flex, and then definitely in the flex on those Mahomes captain teams. If you're playing Mahomes captain, I think he's a great complement for those teams. No quarterbacks here. The one thing that does stand out is these kickers. They got them way up again. 5-4 for Sanders, and then 5-2 for Bucker. Prefer Bucker just because I think that the Chiefs have more success offensively. And man, he hasn't missed all season. I mean, he's perfect. And then you look at the points: 11, 7, 17, 10, 11, 12. So he gets the job done, and I do like him. I will have Sanders as well in there, but man, at 5-4. These kickers, they definitely have to do something. It's not just like a couple 30-yard field goals. They need to do more. So, and the one thing I will say, the ownership on the kickers has come down as well because of these increased price tags. MVS, McKinnon, guys that I'll be playing in those Mahomes captain teams. You can throw Tony in there as well. I think he's a fine option. Defenses, I think the defenses actually end up probably getting some pretty good ownership because they're so cheap. 3-2 for the Dolphins, 3K for the Chiefs. I don't necessarily love playing either of them, but I think you keep them in your player pool for this game. Jeff Wilson Jr. should be back up running back here at 2-4. That's too cheap. Barrios at 2K is listed as questionable. Let's see. Mispractice limited Thursday and Friday. Yes, you have to keep an eye on that, but he's definitely a cheap option to consider on the slate. Sky Moore, 1,800. I actually really like that price tag. He is a preferred value for me. That's way too cheap. Hasn't got the job done this season, but in those Mahomes captain teams, I want some of them for sure. I want some Sky Moore. There's no doubt about that. Probably not much Chase Claypool. He didn't get out there all that often. I think you can play Watson and Hardman, Mecole Hardman, in those captain Mahomes teams. Ahmed, I don't mind. Smythe is questionable. We have to see if he plays. If Smythe is in, 800 is a cheap price tag for him. And then do we have any? Oh, Noah Gray as well. You can play him. And then in terms of like the $200 plays, not much that I'm seeing here. So, it's just kind of a quick rundown here for the Germany game here between the Dolphins and the Chiefs. I want one of the expensive captains. I think I made that pretty clear. I think they're in two different tiers. Like I said, Tyreek, Kelsey. I'm going to include Waddle in that top tier, and that'll be like probably my highest on guys. And then Mahomes, Tua, Pacheco, Mostert in that next tier of captains. I think will end up being one of those guys. And then there's a lot of cheapish options. Kickers are priced up. Defenses are priced down. The story with the Chiefs. They're going to mix in a ton of guys at wide receiver, so plan accordingly there. And then the Dolphins, not as many secondary plays, and we need to keep an eye on Barrios in terms of his availability for this game. But that's a quick rundown. Make sure to get on over to SHIPITNation.com. Like I said, we'll have cores for this slate, DraftKings, FanDuel, and cash cores, along with all our other Week 9 content over there as well. Please also hit the like button and subscribe. Helps us out a ton in growing this channel. We can appreciate your continued support, and we'll continue to do quick hits on these one-off type of games, the London games, the Germany games. I think there's another one next week as well. So we'll be back for that. But good luck in your contest this week. We'll be back next week.